Welcome to the Chosen One. Can you feel it right now? That stirring in your chest that made you click on this video. What if I told you that wasn't your curiosity, that was heaven calling your name? And what if the reason you've been feeling so isolated, so misunderstood, so overlooked isn't because you're broken, but because you're being positioned? Chosen One. Heaven is leaning over the balcony right now and smiling at you, not because you're perfect, not because you're loud or flashy or Instagram famous, but because you've done something in secret that shook eternity. While you've been sitting there wondering if anyone even sees you anymore, wondering if your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling, if your tears are falling into emptiness, the throne room of God has been watching every single moment. And I need you to understand something that's going to change how you see yourself forever. You've been wondering, haven't you? Did it matter? The kindness no one noticed, the prayers no one saw, the tears nobody cared to ask about, the times you chose forgiveness when revenge felt so much sweeter, the doors you walked away from because your spirit said no, even when your bank account screamed yes. Listen to me carefully. Every single one of those moments has been recorded in Heaven's Hall of Records with your name written in gold. And the smile on God's face right now? It's because He's about to show the world what He's been building in you while they weren't watching. Before we go deeper, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. If your spirit is already stirred by this, if something deep inside you is saying, "This is for me," type, "I receive it" in the comments so I know I'm talking to you. Let's flood this space with agreement before we go further. By the time we finish today, you'll know exactly why heaven's smiling and, more importantly, what's about to happen next in your life. Because this isn't just encouragement, this is revelation. But before I tell you the 7 hidden reasons heaven is smiling on you right now, I need to take you back to something you've forgotten, something that's been buried under years of disappointment and doubt. And when you remember this truth, it's going to unlock everything. Are you ready? Do you know what breaks God's heart more than sin? When His children think their sacrifices go unnoticed. When you believe that every act of kindness, every moment of integrity, every tear you've cried in secret has been wasted on a world that doesn't care. But let me shatter that lie right now. You've been living like a gardener, watering seeds in complete darkness. Night after night, month after month, year after year, you've been pouring your heart into soil that looks dead, into people who seem ungrateful, into situations that feel hopeless. And you've been asking yourself the same devastating question: does any of this even matter? The enemy wants you to believe you're invisible, that your faithfulness is foolishness, that your refusal to compromise has cost you everything and gained you nothing. He whispers in your ear, "Look around, where's your reward? Where's your recognition? Where's your breakthrough?" But heaven has been keeping a different set of books. In Matthew chapter 6, verses 3 and 4, Jesus said something that will revolutionize how you see your hidden sacrifices. "But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." The Father who sees what is done in secret. Let that sink into your spirit for a moment. While you've been feeling forgotten, overlooked, taken for granted, the Creator of the universe has been watching every single act of obedience. When you chose integrity over income, God saw it. When you forgave instead of getting even, God recorded it. When you served others while your own heart was breaking, God witnessed every tear. Right now, as I speak these words, there's a hall of records in heaven where angels are writing your name on golden scrolls. Every time you chose obedience over ease, every time you walked away from compromise, every time you loved when hate was easier, it's all been documented in the eternal archives of God. You think you've been working in the dark, but you've been working under heaven's spotlight the entire time. Remember the woman who poured expensive perfume on Jesus' feet? The disciples called it wasteful. They said it was too much, too extravagant, too unnecessary. But Jesus said, "Wherever this gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." One act of sacrificial love became eternal legacy. That's what's happening with your hidden faithfulness right now. Every time you bit your tongue when you could have destroyed someone with your words, heaven applauded. Every time you stayed pure when the world said purity was outdated, the angels cheered. Every time you gave when you barely had enough for yourself, the Father smiled with pride. You've been planting in the dark, but your harvest is about to break through the soil. The world missed it because the world only sees the surface. They celebrate the loud, the flashy, the self-promoting. But God sees deeper. He sees the single mother who prays over her children every night, even when they don't appreciate her. He sees the man who keeps his word even when breaking it would save him money. He sees the woman who chooses forgiveness even when bitterness feels justified. They missed it. God didn't. And that's why there's a reward being woven around your name as we speak. Not because you've been perfect, but because you've been faithful in the small things when no one was watching. Not because you've been loud about your righteousness, but because you've been quiet about your sacrifice. The enemy has been lying to you about your value, your impact, your purpose. He's convinced you that hidden faithfulness is worthless faithfulness. But every seed you've planted in secret is about to produce a harvest that will shock your enemies and silence your critics. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your greatest rewards aren't coming from the things people saw you do, they're coming from the things only God saw. The prayers you prayed when no one was listening, the kindness you showed when no one was looking, the integrity you maintained when no one would have known the difference. God has been keeping score, and you're winning by more than you realize. But I need to tell you something that's going to change everything about how you see your future. If God has been watching your hidden faithfulness this closely, if He's been recording every secret sacrifice, if He's been preparing rewards for obedience that no one witnessed, what do you think He's about to do with the faith you've been building in the shadows? The same God who sees in secret is about to reveal in public. The same Father who rewards hidden faithfulness is about to showcase the children who trusted Him when trust was all they had left. Your season of hiddenness is ending, and your season of manifestation is beginning. You know what heaven recorded about you that you've probably forgotten? The doors you didn't walk through, the compromises you didn't make, the golden opportunities that glittered like fool's gold, and you had the spiritual discernment to walk away. While everyone else was bending, breaking, selling pieces of their soul for temporary comfort, you stood firm. And I know it cost you. I know it hurt. I know there were nights you laid in bed wondering if you made the right choice, wondering if integrity was just a fancy word for missing out. But heaven was watching. And every time you chose your character over convenience, every time you picked principle over profit, the angels took notes. Let me paint you a picture that's going to hit close to home. You remember Joseph, don't you? Young man, faithful servant, working in Potiphar's house. And Potiphar's wife, she had golden doors to offer him. Advancement, protection, security. All he had to do was compromise just once. Just bend a little. Just this one time. But when she grabbed his coat, what did Joseph do? He left it in her hands and ran. Left his reputation, his position, his security, everything, and chose purity over prosperity. And you know what happened next? Prison, darkness, years of wondering if God had forgotten his name. Sound familiar? How many times have you been Joseph? How many times have you walked away from that job that would have required you to lie? That relationship that felt good but your spirit said danger? That opportunity that everyone said you were crazy to refuse? You left your coat and ran, and they called you foolish. They called you proud. They said you were too picky, too rigid, too spiritual for your own good. But heaven smiled every single time. David had his moment too. Saul was right there in that cave, vulnerable, defenseless. David's men whispered, "This is your chance. God delivered your enemy into your hands." One swift move and all his problems would be over. The kingdom was within reach. Justice served on a silver platter. But David cut off a piece of Saul's robe and even felt guilty about that. He could have taken the throne by force, but he refused to touch God's anointed. He chose God's timing over his own revenge. He chose integrity over immediacy. And his men probably thought he was out of his mind, just like they thought about you. You've been in that cave, haven't you? With the perfect opportunity to get back at someone who hurt you. The chance to expose them, to humiliate them, to make them pay for what they did. You had the evidence. You had the platform. You had the justification. But something in your spirit said no. And you walked away. Again, do you know how rare that is in this world? Do you understand what you did in those moments? You chose to be like God instead of acting like the world. You chose mercy when everyone expected justice. You chose restraint when everyone applauded revenge. And heaven erupted in applause every single time. But let me tell you what really happened in those moments that you need to understand. When you refused to bend, when you walked away from compromise, when you chose the narrow road, you didn't just preserve your integrity, you preserved your anointing. Every time you could have cut corners but didn't. Every time you could have lied but told the truth. Every time you could have cheated but played fair. You were protecting something precious that God had deposited in you. Something that can't be bought, can't be faked, can't be replaced once it's gone. Your purity of heart, your clean conscience, your ability to sleep at night knowing you did the right thing even when it cost you everything. That's why heaven is smiling. But I know what you're thinking. Pastor, if I made all the right choices, why am I still struggling? Why am I still waiting? Why does it feel like everyone who compromised is ahead of me? Listen to me very carefully. The people who sold out for quick success are building houses on sand. They look good on the outside, but their foundations are cracking. Their marriages are falling apart behind closed doors. Their children don't respect them. Their consciences are so seared they can't hear God's voice anymore. But you built on the rock. Slowly, painfully, one righteous choice at a time. And here's what I need you to understand that's going to change everything. Those moments when you refused to bend weren't just character tests. They were qualifying rounds. God wasn't trying to punish you. He was preparing you for something so big, so significant, that it required someone with unshakable integrity. You see, anyone can handle small blessings. Anyone can manage a little bit of favor. But when God is about to release massive breakthrough, generational wealth, kingdom influence, he needs someone who won't be corrupted by it. He needs someone who has already proven they can't be bought. That's why you had to pass those tests in private before you could be trusted with public success. That's why you had to prove you'd choose God over gold, character over cash, integrity over influence. Because what's coming is bigger than anything you walked away from. Joseph didn't know that his prison sentence was actually his preparation for the palace. David didn't know that sparing Saul was qualifying him to be a king after God's own heart. And you don't know that every door you didn't walk through was protecting you from settling for less than God's best. The loneliness you felt, that was God separating you from people who would have corrupted your calling. The misunderstanding, that was God hiding you until your character was strong enough to handle your destiny. The waiting, that was God making sure you were ready for what he's been preparing. And yet, what you walked away from is just as powerful as what you walked into. Because in those moments of refusal, in those seasons of standing alone, in those nights of wondering if you were crazy, you were being transformed from the inside out. You weren't just avoiding compromise, you were becoming incorruptible. You know what heaven recorded about you that still makes the angels whisper? The moment you chose love, when hate was not just easier, it was justified. When every fiber of your being screamed for revenge, when justice demanded payback, when even God himself would have understood if you struck back, you didn't. Let me paint you a picture that's going to hurt before it heals. You remember that person, don't you? The one you would have taken a bullet for. The one you trusted with your deepest secrets, your hardest seasons, your most vulnerable moments. You opened your heart like a book, and they read every page, then used your own words against you. They didn't just betray you, they assassinated your character with surgical precision. They knew exactly where to cut because you showed them where you bled. They smiled at your table, broke bread in your home, prayed with you on Sunday, then spent Monday morning rewriting your story to anyone who would listen. Here's what breaks my heart about your story. You didn't just lose a friend, you lost your faith in friendship itself. You didn't just get hurt, you started questioning if kindness was weakness, if trust was foolishness, if love was just setting yourself up to be destroyed. And in that moment, in that raw, bleeding, soul-crushing moment, you had a choice that would determine not just your future, but your very identity. You could build walls or build altars. You could become bitter or become better. You could let their poison kill your heart, or let God's love resurrect your spirit. The world told you to get even. Your friends told you to fight back. Your own hurt told you to hate them the way they hated you. But something deeper spoke louder. Something that sounded like the voice of the one who hung on a cross and said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Listen to what Jesus said in Matthew 5:44. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Not like them, not tolerate them, love them. Pray for the very people who are praying for your downfall. You want to know why heaven is smiling at you right now? Because you did the impossible. You loved when hate was easier. You blessed when cursing felt justified. You prayed for their breakthrough when they were praying for your breakdown. Let me tell you what that looked like in heaven. The moment you chose forgiveness over vengeance, every demon assigned to destroy you through bitterness had to retreat. The moment you chose to pray for your enemy instead of plotting against them, hell's strategy against your destiny crumbled. Because demons can fight anger, they can fuel hatred, they can weaponize revenge, but they cannot touch radical love. You built an altar where the world expected you to build a wall. And on that altar, you didn't sacrifice your enemy, you sacrificed your right to be bitter. You didn't offer up their destruction, you offered up your own desire for revenge. And God looked down from heaven and said, "Now I can trust this one with greater glory, because they've learned to love like I love." But here's where it gets deep. That love didn't just save your soul, it changed your DNA. Every time you chose love over hate, you weren't just making a decision, you were becoming a different person. You weren't just acting loving, you were being transformed into love itself. The betrayer thought they were writing your obituary, but they were actually writing your origin story. They thought they were ending your chapter, but they were giving you the greatest plot twist of your life. Because the person who walked into that betrayal and the person who walked out choosing love, they're not the same human being. If you've ever chosen love when revenge was easier, type "Nof." That's me in the comments right now. We are standing together in that testimony today. Because what you did wasn't just admirable, it was supernatural. You want to know the difference between religious people and chosen ones? Religious people love when it's convenient. Chosen ones love when it's costly. Religious people forgive when they feel like it. Chosen ones forgive when it feels impossible. Religious people pray for people they like. Chosen ones pray for people who have tried to destroy them. You didn't just say love, you became it. And hell can't fight that. Demons can attack your finances. They can attack your health. They can attack your relationships, but they cannot attack pure love, because pure love is the very essence of God Himself. And when you walk in that frequency, you become untouchable. Here's what's about to happen. That same love that cost you everything is about to return everything to you multiplied. That same heart that bled for your enemies is about to overflow with blessing from your Father. That same spirit that chose mercy when justice was within your grasp is about to receive mercy you never dreamed possible. The tables are turning. Chosen one. The altars you built in secret are becoming the platforms where God will display His glory publicly. The love you gave in the dark is about to shine like the sun for all to see. And the people who counted you out are about to count the cost of underestimating someone who loves like God loves. But here's the question that's going to shake you. If love was your response to hatred, if forgiveness was your answer to betrayal, if blessing was your reply to cursing, what do you think God's response is going to be to your obedience? Because, beloved, if you thought the test was hard, wait until you see the testimony. You know what's breaking my heart right now? You've been walking around carrying shame for tests you actually passed. You've been beating yourself up for moments when heaven was actually applauding you. Listen to me. Chosen one, while you were questioning your strength, God was qualifying you. While you thought you were failing, He was promoting you in the spirit realm. And I'm about to show you exactly what I mean. Do you remember that moment when someone cut you so deep with their words that everything in you wanted to explode? When every fiber of your being screamed for revenge? When you had the ammunition to destroy them, the platform to expose them, the evidence to ruin them, and you chose silence instead? That wasn't weakness. That was you passing the Joseph test. Genesis 50:20 says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." Joseph could have destroyed his brothers. He had the power, the position, the perfect opportunity. But he chose grace over grudges, and heaven marked that moment. Heaven recorded that choice. Heaven smiled. What about that time when you served with a broken heart? When you showed up to help others while your own world was falling apart? When you cooked for the family gathering even though they'd been talking about you behind your back? When you visited the hospital, led the prayer, organized the funeral, all while carrying your own unbearable pain? You thought nobody noticed. God noticed. That was you passing the David test, serving in the cave, while being hunted by the very people you were called to bless. And that moment when forgiveness felt impossible, when every logical part of you said they don't deserve it, when you had every right to hold that grudge, nurse that wound, build that wall. But something deep inside you whispered, "Let it go," and you did. Matthew 6:14 says, "If you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you." That wasn't just obedience. That was you passing the Jesus test. You chose the cross over the crown. You chose mercy over justice. Here's what you need to understand. These weren't random trials thrown at you by a cruel universe. These were strategic examinations administered by a loving Father who was preparing you for something bigger than you could imagine. You see, God doesn't promote people based on their potential. He promotes them based on their proven character. And every single time you chose love when hate was easier, every time you chose peace when drama was profitable, every time you chose integrity when compromise was convenient, heaven was taking notes. 1 Samuel 16:7 tells us, "The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." While the world was judging your exterior, God was grading your interior. While they were measuring your mistakes, he was monitoring your motives. But here's the part that's going to shake you. You weren't just being tested on your actions, you were being tested on your reactions. How do you respond when nobody's watching? How do you handle power when you have it? How do you treat people who can do nothing for you? You passed the Abraham test when you walked away from relationships that required you to compromise your values. You passed the Moses test when you spoke up for those who couldn't speak for themselves, even when it cost you. You passed the Esther test when you risked your comfort for someone else's breakthrough. And every single test you passed in secret has been building your spiritual resume in heaven. Every moment of choosing character over comfort has been adding another line to your divine job description. Now listen carefully. These were not trials to punish you. These were tests to trust you. God wasn't trying to break you down. He was trying to build you up. He wasn't measuring your weakness. He was multiplying your strength. The enemy wanted those tests to destroy you, but God used them to deploy you. Satan meant them for your downfall, but heaven designed them for your breakthrough. You know why the devil fought you so hard during those seasons? Because he could see what was coming. He could see the promotion heaven was preparing. He could see the platform being built. He could see the purpose being refined. But here's what's about to blow your mind. Every test you passed in the little has qualified you for something much. Every moment you proved faithful with what seemed insignificant has prepared you for what's about to be magnificent. Luke 16:10 says it perfectly. Whoever is faithful in very little is also faithful in much. You've been faithful in the very little, in the quiet moments, the hidden choices, the secret sacrifices. And now that heaven knows you can be trusted with little, something's about to break open in the much. The promotion is coming. The breakthrough is coming. The vindication is coming. The restoration is coming. And it's not coming because you begged for it or manipulated for it or performed for it. It's coming because you earned it in the secret place. So stop apologizing for your season of testing. Stop feeling guilty for the pain you endured. Stop questioning whether you handled it right. You didn't just survive those tests, you aced them, and heaven has the transcript to prove it. But there's something else you need to know about how God qualifies his chosen ones. Something about the whispers that changed everything. And here's the fifth reason heaven is smiling on you right now. Chosen one. And this one's going to hit different because I know some of you are sitting there thinking, but I don't have all the answers. I don't have the full plan laid out. You moved on a whisper. Let me paint you a picture that's going to shake something loose in your spirit. 4,000 years ago, there was a 75-year-old man named Abram living in Ur of the Chaldees. Comfortable life, established business, family connections, everything the world told him he needed to feel secure. And then God whispered, not shouted, not thundered, whispered, "Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you." Genesis 12:1. That's it. No GPS coordinates. No 5-year plan. No financial projections. Just go to a land that I will show you. Now here's what's wrecking me about this story and why heaven is smiling at you right now. Abram didn't ask for 10 confirmations. He didn't demand a roadmap. He didn't wait for his 401 Kelvin to hit a certain number or for his kids to graduate college. He heard one whisper from the Almighty, and he packed up everything he owned and started walking. You've done the same thing. Don't you dare sit there and tell me you haven't. I'm talking to the woman who left that toxic marriage with 3 kids and $47 in her checking account because something deep in her spirit said, "Not one more day." I'm talking to the man who walked away from that 6-figure job that was killing his soul because he heard heaven whisper, "I have something better." You moved on faith when logic screamed at you to stay put. And let me tell you something that's going to mess with your theology a little bit. God doesn't give you the full map because He wants to walk with you mile by mile. If He showed you everything that was coming, the valleys, the mountains, the desert seasons, the promised land, you'd either run from the hard parts or try to skip to the end without the character development. But you trusted the whisper. When everyone around you said, "Are you crazy? You're too old to start over. You don't have enough education. You don't have the right connections," you moved anyway. When the bank statement looked impossible and the future felt uncertain, when people questioned your sanity and your family thought you'd lost your mind, you followed the voice that only you could hear. That's not recklessness, beloved. That's the kind of faith that makes angels applaud. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. Abraham was 75 when he left everything familiar. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." God doesn't consult your birth certificate when He's ready to use you. And I need you to understand something that's going to change how you see every leap you've ever taken. Every time you moved on a whisper, you were actually moving on a promise. Because when God whispers, He's not giving you suggestions, He's revealing destiny. That job you took that didn't make sense on paper but felt right in your spirit, whisper. That move across the country when you didn't know a soul, whisper. That decision to forgive when every fiber of your being wanted revenge, whisper. That choice to trust again after being betrayed, whisper. You've been living by divine downloads your whole life. And here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize: every single time you obeyed that whisper, you were qualifying for the next level. Every act of faith without a full map was God saying, "Can I trust you with something bigger?" And guess what? You passed every test. The reason you felt so different, so out of step with the world, so misunderstood by people who need everything spelled out in black and white, is because you operate by a different frequency. You hear what others can't hear. You see what others miss. You move when others are paralyzed by analysis. That's not coincidence. That's your spiritual DNA. Remember when Joshua stood at the Jordan River with 2 million people behind him, staring at flood-stage waters, and God said, "Take a step, not wait for the water to part. Not let me show you how this works. Just take a step." And the moment the priest's feet touched that water boom, the impossible became inevitable. You've been taking those steps your whole life. Every major breakthrough in your story started with a whisper you followed when you couldn't see the outcome. Every door that opened, every divine connection, every supernatural provision, it all began with you saying yes to something that made no earthly sense but perfect heavenly sense. And here's the part that's going to mess you up in the best way. God has been tracking every single act of whisper obedience. Every time you chose faith over fear, trust over certainty, His voice over the crowd's opinion, heaven has been taking notes. You didn't wait for 10 signs, you moved on one whisper. That's why favor is tracking you now. Favor isn't luck, chosen one. Favor is the compound interest on every leap of faith you took when no one was watching. It's the return on investment for every time you trusted God's whisper over your own understanding. And right now, there's another whisper coming. You feel it, don't you? That stirring, that restlessness, that sense that God is about to ask you to move again. Maybe it's a relationship that needs healing. Maybe it's a dream you buried that needs resurrection. Maybe it's a calling you've been running from because it feels too big, too scary, too impossible. But here's what I need you to understand about this next whisper. It's not coming to a rookie. God isn't asking someone who's never moved by faith before. He's speaking to someone who has a track record, someone who has proven they'll obey without the full blueprint. He's speaking to you because you've already shown Him. You'll move on a whisper. And that next whisper you're hearing, it's not just an invitation, it's an acceleration. Because every time you've obeyed in the past has been preparing you for this moment, this move, this level of trust that's about to launch you into everything God has been preparing while you weren't looking. The question is, will you move on this whisper too? And this brings me to the sixth reason heaven is smiling on you right now, chosen one. You built when it looked absolutely pointless. Let me ask you something that's going to sting for a moment. How many years have you been building something that nobody seems to notice? How many sleepless nights have you poured into a ministry that feels like it's going nowhere? How many decades did you invest in raising children who now act like strangers? How many mornings did you show up to a job where thank you was a foreign language? You kept building anyway, didn't you? The world called it foolish. Your family called it obsessive. Your friends, well, the ones who stuck around, they called it a waste of time. But something deep in your spirit kept whispering, keep going, keep building, even when you can't see the blueprint. Do you know who else built when it looked pointless? Noah. Genesis 6:22 tells us, Noah did everything just as God commanded him. Everything. Not some things, not the easy things. Everything. For 120 years, this man hammered nails into a massive boat while his neighbors laughed themselves sick. For 120 years, he gathered animals while people pointed and whispered about the crazy old man building a ship in the desert. Not one drop of rain fell for over a century. Can you imagine? Can you picture Noah's wife asking him at breakfast, "Honey, still no rain forecast today. Maybe we should take a break from the boat building." Can you imagine his children rolling their eyes every morning as Dad walked out to work on what looked like the world's most expensive pile of wood? But Noah kept building because God said, build. And you, dear chosen one, you've been Noah in your own life. That business you started in your garage when everyone said it would fail, you kept building. That prayer group you've been leading for 15 years with the same 3 faithful people, you kept building. That relationship with your rebellious teenager who slams doors and breaks your heart weekly, you kept building. Heaven has been watching every nail you've hammered in the dark. Let me tell you what breaks God's heart. It's not your failures. It's not your mistakes. It's when His chosen ones stop building because they can't see the rain coming. Because while you've been questioning whether any of this matters, Heaven's weather forecast has been locked in from the beginning. Your rain is coming. But here's what I need you to understand about building in obscurity. Every sermon you preached to 5 people instead of 500, heaven recorded it as if Madison Square Garden was packed. Every diaper you changed at 3 a.m. when your back was screaming and your patience was gone, heaven marked it down as if you were tending to royalty. Every day you showed up to that thankless job and did excellent work anyway, heaven has been taking notes. You think faithfulness in the small things doesn't matter? Tell that to David, who spent years protecting sheep before he protected a nation. I want to speak directly to the mothers watching this right now. You who have built character into children who now act like they've never heard of character. You who have prayed over bedrooms that now feel empty. You who have given your whole life to raising human beings who barely call anymore. Heaven is smiling at you because you built love into their foundation, and love doesn't expire. And to the fathers who worked 2 jobs to provide while your family took it for granted, who taught work ethic to children who now think everything should be handed to them, who built stability and strength into a household that sometimes felt more like a hurricane. Your building mattered. Every sacrifice was recorded. To every pastor who's preached your heart out to the same 25 people for 25 years, heaven sees you. To every teacher who's poured wisdom into students who acted like they weren't listening, to every caregiver who's served the elderly, the sick, the forgotten while society looked the other way. You've been building Noah's Ark, and you didn't even know it. But here's where this gets powerful. Noah didn't build the ark for the people who were laughing. He built it for the ones who would need it when the storm came. And you, chosen one, you haven't been building for the critics. You haven't been building for the ungrateful. You haven't been building for the ones who walked away when things got difficult. You've been building for the moment when God says, now, because there's coming a day. And I believe some of you are standing on the edge of that day right now when everything you built in secret is going to be revealed in public. When every foundation you laid in tears is going to hold up a building that shocks everyone who counted you out. The children you built into are going to return and say, thank you for not giving up on me. The ministry you built in obscurity is going to suddenly explode with divine purpose. The character you built when nobody was watching is going to shine when everyone is looking. But here's the test you're in right now. Will you keep building even though the rain hasn't come yet? Will you keep hammering nails even though the forecast still looks dry? Will you trust God's blueprint even when yours doesn't make sense? Because I need to tell you something that's going to change your perspective forever. Noah's neighbors stopped laughing the moment the first raindrop fell. And there's coming a moment in your life when everyone who questioned your building is going to stand in awe of what God built through your faithfulness. Put your hand on your heart right now and say this with me. I will keep building until the breakthrough. Say it like you mean it. I will keep building until the breakthrough. Because your breakthrough isn't coming in spite of your building. It's coming because of it. And this leads me to something even more powerful about why heaven is smiling on you. Not only have you built when it looked pointless, but there's something about the way you've been building that heaven finds absolutely beautiful. You know what heaven loves most about you? You didn't rush to the platform. While everyone else was building their brand, posting their breakthrough, announcing their calling before they'd even answered it, you disappeared. You went silent. You let God strip you down to nothing so he could build you back up into everything. And that, chosen one, is why heaven is smiling. See, we live in a world that screams, fake it till you make it. A culture that says if you're not performing your healing, if you're not monetizing your testimony, if you're not influencing while you're still bleeding, then you're doing it wrong. But you chose the harder path. You chose the potter's wheel over the podium. Listen to what Job discovered in his darkest hour. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I shall come forth as gold. Job 23:10. Not silver, not bronze, gold. The kind of purity that only comes through fire. The kind of character that only emerges when everything fake gets burned away. How many years did you spend in that fire? How many nights did you cry yourself to sleep, wondering why God was taking so long? Why your healing felt like surgery without anesthesia? Why every layer he peeled back hurt worse than the last? You wanted the calling. God wanted the character. You wanted the platform. God wanted the process. You wanted the miracle. God wanted the man. God wanted the woman. The real you, not the performance version, not the social media version, the gold version. And while you were in that secret place, that painful, lonely, necessary place, others were building empires on sand. They were teaching what they hadn't learned, preaching what they hadn't processed, leading people to places they'd never been themselves. But not you. You let him break you first, really break you. Strip away the pride, the facade, the need to be seen, to be right, to be first. You let him excavate the generational curses, the trauma, the lies you'd believed about yourself since childhood. You let him heal the healer before you tried to heal anybody else. Do you realize how rare that is? In a world full of wounded healers and broken leaders, you chose to be whole first. You chose to be real first. You chose to be his first. And heaven? Heaven has been watching this entire process, recording every tear, collecting every prayer, writing your name on a scroll that says tested, proven, ready. Not ready for fame, not ready for followers, ready for assignment. Because here's what they don't tell you about the potter's wheel: it hurts. The pressure, the spinning, the constant reshaping. There were moments you begged him to stop. Moments you thought you were going to break completely. Moments you wondered if this healing process was actually killing you. But look at you now. Still here, still whole, still trusting. The clay that refused to crack under pressure, the gold that came through the fire shinier than when it went in. And now God is ready to show the world what patient, private, persistent healing looks like when it finally steps into the light. You see, while others built their ministry on their mess, you let God transform your mess into your message. While others performed their pain for profit, you processed your pain for purpose. While others rushed to the microphone, you ran to the throne room. And that's the difference between influence and impact, between a platform and a calling, between fame and favor, between being chosen by people and being chosen by God. The world chose them for their talent. God chose you for your character. The world chose them for what they could do. God chose you for who you would become. And becoming real becoming doesn't happen on a stage. It happens in secret, in the prayer closet, in the valley, in the fire, where nobody's watching except the one who matters most. You let him heal the parts of you that no one else even knew were broken. The little girl who never felt good enough. The little boy who learned to perform for love. The teenager who built walls so high that even God had to tear them down brick by brick. The adult who was so tired of wearing masks that you finally gave him permission to see your real face. And when he saw you, really saw you, he smiled. Not because you were perfect, but because you were finally real, finally ready, finally his. This is why your voice carries weight now, why your presence shifts atmospheres, why people feel something different when you walk in the room. You're not performing healing, you are healed. You're not faking wholeness, you are whole. The brokenness that once defined you now refines others. The pain that once imprisoned you now liberates people who thought they'd never be free. The healing that happened in secret is now becoming a public declaration of God's power. But here's what heaven wants you to know as you step into this next season. The very thing that tried to destroy you is now going to be the thing that establishes you. The wounds that whispered you're not enough are now going to thunder God is more than enough. The healing that felt like dying is now going to feel like resurrection. Because you didn't just get healed, chosen one. You got prepared. Prepared for assignments that require character, not just charisma. Prepared for battles that demand wisdom, not just warfare. Prepared for a calling that's bigger than your pain but built on the foundation of your healing. And that preparation, that patient, painful, beautiful preparation is exactly why heaven is smiling on you right now. Not because your healing is complete, but because your heart is ready. Ready for whatever he calls you to next. So tell me, are you finally ready to step into the fullness of who he's been making you all along? Listen to me, chosen one. We've walked through 7 reasons why heaven is smiling on you, but this 8th reason, this is the one that's going to shatter every lie you've ever believed about yourself. This is the moment when everything clicks into place. You became who he created, not who your family said you were, not who society labeled you as, not who your past mistakes convinced you that you had to remain. You stepped into the original blueprint that God drew up before the foundation of the world was even laid. Do you realize what you've done? You've committed the most radical act of rebellion this world has ever seen. You dared to become authentic in a world that profits off your insecurity. You chose to walk in your God-given identity, while everyone around you was selling you a cheaper version of yourself. Jeremiah 1-5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart. Before your first breath, before your first heartbreak, before your first failure, God already knew exactly who you were meant to be. And every single day that you've chosen to align with that original design, instead of the counterfeit versions people tried to sell you, heaven has been throwing a celebration. But let's get real for a minute. How many times did they try to shrink you? How many times did well-meaning people, maybe even family, tell you to be realistic about your dreams? How many times did you hear people like us, "Don't do things like that"? Or who do you think you are? Here's who you think you are. You're exactly who God said you are. And the moment you stopped apologizing for taking up space, the moment you stopped dimming your light to make others comfortable, the moment you said, "I don't care what they think, I care what God thinks," that's when you stepped into divine frequency. Romans 12:2 commands us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." You didn't just read that verse, you lived it. While others were copying and pasting the same tired patterns from their parents, their neighborhoods, their limitations, you had the audacity to break the mold. You broke generational curses that have been choking your family tree for decades. Addictions stopped with you. Poverty mindsets died with you. Toxic relationship patterns ended with you. Fear-based thinking got buried with you. You became the ancestor your descendants will thank God for. But this transformation didn't happen overnight, did it? No, it happened in the secret place. It happened in those moments when you had to choose between who you used to be and who God was calling you to become. It happened when you had to look in the mirror and say, "I'm not staying here anymore." Some of you had to walk away from friendships that were keeping you small. Some of you had to leave jobs that were sucking the life out of your spirit. Some of you had to set boundaries with family members who were more comfortable with the broken version of you than the healed version. And every single time you chose growth over comfort, heaven erupted in applause. Do you understand what you've accomplished? You've done what most people spend their entire lives being too afraid to do. You've stepped out of the box that generations before you accepted as permanent. You looked at limitation and said, "Not today." You looked at dysfunction and said, "This stops here." You looked at mediocrity and said, "I was created for more." You don't just succeed, you become unstoppable. And as we move into this final revelation, I need you to understand something that's going to change everything about how you see what's coming next in your life. Chosen one, we've walked through 8 sacred reasons why heaven is smiling on you right now. But before you close this video and go back to your day, I need you to carry these truths with you like treasures in your heart. Remember this: God saw what no one clapped for. Every act of kindness when you were hurting, every moment you chose integrity over convenience, every time you loved when hate was easier, heaven recorded it all. You refused to bend when the world tried to break you. You passed tests you didn't even know you were taking. You moved on whispers when others demanded roadmaps. You built when it looked pointless, healed when it hurt, and became exactly who He created you to be. These aren't just nice words. This is your spiritual DNA. This is who you are at the core. And that smile on God's face? It's permanent. It's not going anywhere. Because His love for you isn't based on your performance, it's rooted in His nature. But I know some of you are sitting there thinking, "This sounds beautiful, but tomorrow I still have to face the same struggles, the same people who don't understand me, the same circumstances that feel overwhelming." And you're right. Life doesn't stop being challenging just because you understand your identity. But here's what changes everything. You are not alone. You never have been, and you never will be. The same God who smiled when you chose obedience in secret is still working in your life right now. He's orchestrating opportunities you can't see, opening doors you haven't even found yet, and positioning people in your path who will recognize your light. And beyond that, you're part of a community, not just the people watching this video, but a spiritual family that spans generations. Every person who has ever chosen faith over fear, love over bitterness, hope over despair, you're connected to them. Their prayers are still echoing in the atmosphere on your behalf. Right here in these comments, there's a community ready to stand with you. people who understand your journey because they've walked similar paths, people who will pray with you, encourage you, and remind you of who you are when the world tries to make you forget. So let me ask you this. What would change in your life if you truly believed, not just knew intellectually, but believed in your bones that heaven is smiling on you right now? How would you walk differently? How would you speak to yourself? How would you approach your dreams, your relationships, your calling? Take a moment and really think about that, because the answer to that question is the key to everything that's about to unfold in your life. Before we close, I want to pray with you. Not at you, but with you. So if you're comfortable, I want you to close your eyes or just quiet your heart and let these words settle deep into your spirit. Father God, I thank you for every person watching this right now. I thank you that even in their pain, even in their questions, even in their doubt, they've stayed connected to you. Lord, you see the battles they're fighting that no one else knows about. You see the tears they've cried in secret, the prayers they've whispered in desperation, the moments they've almost given up but chose to keep going instead. I pray that your smile over their lives becomes so real to them that it drowns out every voice that has ever told them they weren't enough. Let them feel your pleasure over who they are, not just what they do. Remind them that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, chosen before the foundation of the world, loved beyond measure. God, open doors that no one can shut. Bring divine connections into their lives. Heal what's been broken, restore what's been stolen, and multiply what's been given. Let them walk in such divine frequency that when people encounter them, they encounter you. Give them courage to step fully into who you've created them to be. Remove every limitation, every generational curse, every lie that has held them back. Let this be the moment when everything shifts, when the tide turns, when heaven's smile becomes the foundation they build their future on. And Lord, surround them with community, connect them with people who will see their light, celebrate their victories, and pray them through their valleys. Let them never walk alone again. We declare that they are chosen, they are loved, they are seen, and they are destined for greatness. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. Chosen one, if this message touched your heart, I want you to do 3 things. First, type "Heaven is smiling on me" in the comments below. Let's create a wave of declaration that reminds everyone watching that they're not alone in this journey. Second, tell me in the comments which of these 8 reasons resonated most deeply with you. Was it the way God saw what no one clapped for? The fact that you refused to bend? The love you showed when hate was easier? Share your heart. This community wants to celebrate with you and pray with you. And third, if you know someone who needs to hear this message, someone who's been feeling overlooked, undervalued, or forgotten, share this video with them. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is remind someone that they matter to God. You might be the voice that changes their entire perspective on their life and their future. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for being vulnerable, for allowing God to speak to you through these words. Your time is precious, and the fact that you've invested it here tells me that you're serious about your spiritual growth. If this kind of content speaks to your soul, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We're building a community of chosen ones who refuse to settle for ordinary, who believe in the power of God to transform lives, and who support each other through every season. Remember, you are not an accident. You are not forgotten. You are chosen, and heaven is smiling on you right now. Until we meet again, keep walking in divine frequency. Keep believing in God's goodness. And keep shining your light in this world that desperately needs it. God bless you, chosen one. Go in peace